Let's roll. We're live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's episode of the Paranormal Encyclopedia. I am, as always, your host, Kevin Mears, demonologist and Paranormal Encyclopedia, and I'm joined by my partner in crime,
Brian McKinley, author and godfather of paranormal thrillers.
Unfortunately, our other cohort, Chris, a.k.a. Baron Voltage, is in California.
Yeah, lucky him.
So it's just going to be the two of us tonight along with our guests. And yes, that's correct. It's guests, plural. We've got a kind of a treat for you tonight. So I've talked a lot about my past and how I kind of got wound up here. But one person I haven't talked as much as I would have liked in the past about is the guy who taught me how to get everything I know to get here, which would be the late, great Lou Gentile. So tonight's going to be a show about him. We have a past investigator. We've got his wife that's going to call in, do a whole show. You find out a little bit more about the guy who helped me be who I am today. But of course, before we get into that, we need to plug our first sponsor.
Yes.
Which would be Audible. So, folks,
Totally audible.
Yep. If you like to read like we do, and probably most of you do. I mean, we have a lot of authors on the show. We definitely suggest checking out Audible. It's especially good if you like to read, but you don't have a lot of time to actually sit and read a book. It's audiobook, so you can listen to them in the car. You can listen to them while you're doing something else. I do them sometimes when I'm playing video games.
Great for just any.
Great for driving in particular.
Yeah, if you have a long commute.
I mean, good Lord, when I used to work security and I'd spend 8 hours in a car, I'd have gone crazy without audiobooks. But there's literally thousands of titles on there. Some notable ones would be all of Brian's works, Ancient Enemy, Ancient Blood, and Drawing Dead are all on there. If you want to check those out. If you want to check out, for that matter, Dracula, the prequel to Dracula, that's on there.
Mm-hmm.
Dracula the Undead, Dacre's first book. The sequel, the family authorized sequel to Dracula is on there too. Anne Rice is on there.
Yep.
Stephanie Meyer, just about everybody you can think of in the.
Stephanie Meyer's is not an author. Quite me.
Yeah. But the point is, if you go to the link in the description, which for those who don't see the description, since we're live at the moment and it's not there, it's paranormal. It's audibletrial.com/paranormal-e, audibletrial.com/paranormal-e. You can get 1 free month's membership and a free audiobook. If you decide, you can cancel at any time. If you decide to cancel your membership, you get to keep your audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
They work on your phones, they work on your laptops, your tablets, they work on just about everything.
Yeah, it's real simple. There's a free app that you can download to listen.
Yep. Definitely, and again, we definitely recommend it. We all use it. But, so, let's see. Let's get started tonight. Any of them call in yet?
Now we'll hear the noise, I think, when...
I haven't heard it recently.
It's muted on your mics.
That would explain why I don't hear it. At any rate, so to get things started, so Lou, for those of you who don't know, I've talked about him a few times. Lou was the last student trained by also extremely well-known Ed and Lorraine Warren. I first met him in 98, 99, and then we wound up working together till he died, unfortunately, in 2009. Lou was definitely a character. He wound up doing his own radio show, The Lou Gentile Show, which I co-hosted for many years. If you remember, last week I did a lot of plugging of that because we did the Amityville Horror Week, which you can find on YouTube. If you also look up Lou Gentile on YouTube, you'll find a bunch of videos from interviews he did, from specials that he did. He did a few surviving episodes of the show are hanging around here and there. And he's really quite the character.
So do you know how he became interested in
Yes, I do.
all this?
So Lou's story was much more typical than mine. I mean, I've always talked that when I got started, it was because I saw the movie Ghostbusters. Where most investigators get started, like Lou, is he grew up in a haunted house. I remember him telling me once about how he would see this figure all in black, that the way it moved and the shape of it actually looked like Spider-Man in the black suit.
Oh, God.
So,
That
and
would freak me out.
growing up, he wanted to know what the heck that was and what was happening to him. And he started to research it, and that's how he got started. And eventually, he would meet Ed, and work with him. I remember him telling me once that Ed told him, it's like, because Lou had been doing investigations before he met Ed, and did them, of course, after he started training with Ed. It's like, yeah, when you go up there, it's a different game, because the activity is so much more in the case, and there's truth to that, because Ed and Lorraine were famous in the field. Lou became famous in the field. When people know you, the people with the really crazy stuff tend to reach out to people like us. Yeah, you don't reach out to the average ghost hunting group because you got a dish thrown at your head. You go, okay, something's trying to kill me. Who are the people that deal with the stuff that's trying to kill me? And that's when you start looking for someone like us. I will say, like I said, when I first met Lou, it's actually a funny story in its own right. So I was on FACT, which is Philadelphia Association of Critical Thinking. So it was a skeptics message board on the internet. And they factor back into the story much later in an even funnier way. But I was talking to people on there who had experiences with a haunted house and they wanted advice. And the skeptics were being skeptics and telling them, this isn't real, none of this is happening, why are you at? But, it's like, why are you asking skeptics? But, I mean, at this point, I had spent a lot of time, I had spent a lot of time in cemeteries. I had read metric tons of books, including pretty much everything the Warrens had written by that point. So I consider myself somebody with some idea of what the heck I was doing. And then one day I get this email from this guy, Lou. And he's like, you seem to have an idea of what you're doing. Would you like to come out and work with me on a case sometime? I'm like, okay. And we wound up trading emails back and forth for a while. I wound up doing a case for him here in Jersey. I was still living in Pennsylvania at the time. Somewhere around this area, Princeton area, in fact. Okay. Just off a military base. I remember that much.
Okay, there's a couple of them in the area. There's one further down near Bordentown.
Yeah. But I remember specifically meeting a guy, John, who worked with Lou, who lived in Trenton. And then riding down we met in Trenton because almost right across the river from New Hope. And then riding down together to this house the very first time. And Lou couldn't make it that time. And actually I didn't meet him until later. But it was my first introduction, and it's like starting to use actual equipment, doing EVPs, using EMF detectors and things like that. Then eventually, we talked for a while longer. At one point, I'm like, why don't we get together? You only live in Northeast Philly. It was about an hour from his house to my house, as I would find out many, 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 many times. So we decided to meet in Oxford Valley, which is a town almost halfway.
Yeah, Oxford Mall.
Not the mall, the Barnes & Noble across the street from the mall.
From the mall, yeah.
So I'm in the mall. We agree to meet there, and I'm sitting on the second floor of the bookstore, because it's 2-floor Barnes & Noble, wondering where he is because he's running late. And I get a call. It's like, I need you to come pick me up. I ran out of gas. So I got to drive down, give him a lift to the gas station, so he can get the gas, put it in his van, turn around and come back. I remember whipping an illegal U-turn and then later justifying that to me it wasn't illegal, although it totally is illegal when you cross the concrete divider on the highway.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of illegal.
Yeah. Here's the funny thing. So the first time I met him in person, he had run out of gas and I had to go pick him up. And he wound up whipping an illegal U-turn across the concrete divider. But from that time onward, for the rest of the time I knew the man, he was always making fun of how I drove. Hey, and for that matter, Chris is in chat. Hey, Chris.
Hey. Nice to hear from you. What's he have to say?
He says, thunder rolls.
Dork.
And, yep, dork. And I'm just checking in to try and find out what's going on with the guests. Worst case scenario, if they can't make it, we can always reschedule them. And no, Chris, we're not talking about Jersey drivers. We're talking about Lou. Granted, I was in my early 20s. I wasn't that good of a driver, I'll admit it.
You still don't like to drive.
Oh, I hate driving. But I remember it had been raining all night, and I kept having my windshield wipers on, but it had stopped raining by the point I got him. And he was making fun of me for that. But no, we hang out a while. And Chris just arrived in San Fran.
Oh.
So welcome to San Francisco, dude. You're missed. For that matter, Antoinette, Stacy, or Ed, if any of you are listening, please do call in. Number is at the bottom of the screen, 609-807-2492, 609-807-2492. It is not an issue for us to have multiple callers on the line, so don't worry about tripping over each other. Just call in. But we wound up hanging out for a while, and then eventually I'd start going down to his house.
Oh, and they should call in on the phone, not the Skype, right?
Yeah, it's a lot easier if you, although I didn't give the Skype number out. It's a lot easier if you call in using the phone number. It is technically calling Skype, but...
But it works easier. We've had people have problems by trying to call in with the Skype.
So I'll say one of the funnier... Lou was a character, and that's one of probably the things I always enjoyed, because he had a weird sense of humor. And as I think our listeners probably have noticed, and I'm sure you have by now, so do I.
Mm-hmm.
And we have one of those friendships where you're constantly making fun of each other. And I mean, I ranked on him for his driving more than once too. I remember something I particularly hate aside from driving itself, which is following somebody else in your car. I hate doing that. And happily these days I almost never have to do it thanks to the invention of GPS. But I remember following him, and like we're going to this exit, and he swerves to get into the lane, and he swerves back, and the next exit he does it again. Or there was the trip to Harrisburg for a lecture where it took us 5 hours to go 2.5 hours because we kept getting lost.
So what was your first actual investigation with Lou? Or
The first one that I think it was the second time I went to that house here in this part of Jersey.
Okay.
Because this house was a piece of work. It was right off a military base. This is the house, I think I told the story about sitting in the room and with the chair all the way back against the wall and hearing the growling noise coming basically from inside of the chair. And the scorpion in the tank.
Oh, yeah.
And for that matter, that the first EVP I ever heard, which is by far the clearest, sitting in the bedroom of this house. And we're asking questions. And this is the first time I was there, so not with Lou. We're asking questions, and we get back on the recording, you fucking bitch, you fucking whore. With this, and most people listening to this have probably heard EVPs, if only in horror movies, and normally they're not very clear. This was a voice speaking as clearly as I am now. But neither of us heard it. And again, going to client reports, that's the sort of thing she was talking about hearing when she laid down to go to sleep. I wish to God I had a copy of that recording, but given this has been well over, going on 20 years now, I'm not sure anybody's got a copy of it anymore.
Yeah.
And I remember, of course, doing the radio show, which Lou did it for a while. He started out on regular radio in Northeast Philly, and then he wound up gradually working over into doing it as an internet show. And this is, again, late 90s, so nobody else was doing internet. Oh, Gene was doing internet radio, but for the most part, it wasn't something people thought of.
Gene was a pioneer.
Yeah, Gene and Lou together. But he starts doing this show, and then I'm hanging out with him in his house one night, and he's like, why don't you come on the show and see what happens? And that's when 6 hours into a 2-hour show, I got my start in radio. Which was his thing. He was very much let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Like, I remember one of the funnier things that happened more than once when I was on the show. people would call his house, but he had a dedicated line for guests to call in and for listeners to call in, and people were supposed to know you don't use this phone number. This is the number for the show. People would call in anyway, so he would screen call so he knew who was calling in, but he'd know who it was and he'd put them on the air anyway. It's like, you're going to call and put it on the air. If you don't want to be put on the air, don't call this number.
Nice.
Oh, God, there's one of the other funny bits. So, we're sitting in this room, this office, basically, it is literally a walk-in closet with shelves and desks and computers, like 12 computers all stacked together, all interfaced with each other. He used to own, I remember him telling me before I met him, he used to own one of the largest pirate bulletin boards in the country, which is why he had all of these computers, was to run that. But, and then on the one wall was all the various books on the occult and on the paranormal. And I remember looking at him and wanting to take one down, and he's like, okay, just don't touch the ones from here down. Because he'd stored the various haunted objects he got in them. And I could have sworn I understood what he said, but apparently no, I got it backwards, because the first book I reached for was like, no, don't pick up that one.
It looked like something came through on your phone
Yes.
as a message.
From Stacy. She misunderstood thought it was tomorrow. It's like, no, it's tonight, now.
Oh. Well, there we go. At least we cleared that up.
I'm wondering if that might be the issue, is people thought I meant, thought I meant tomorrow. It's like, no, November 1st. Thursday. It shows always the Thursday. But let's see, so what are some of the other funny ones? Yeah, I do apologize for the fact I'm because it's like, the moment we're slightly stalling for time because we are supposed to have guests.
Yeah, and unfortunately,
Yeah.
I never met Lou, so.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the problem of the fact he died in 2009. There's so many people that's like, well, they've heard me talk about him a whole lot. But, I mean, even the convention circuit, I wanted to bring him out to Wicked Fair back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like the first couple I started doing Wicked is when he fell sick, and then unfortunately it was always, well, first he had a workplace injury, and that slowed down his ability to do lectures. It slowed down everything.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, put him through. Hello, you're there, you're here.
I'm here, Kevin. It's Ed. How you doing, buddy?
Hey.
Good, how you doing? Ladies and gentlemen, Ed is a fellow investigator from back in the day.
Oh, hello.
Who
How's it going?
you're one of the other lucky ones that got trained by Lou.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we got, funny enough, we just got connected by accident.
Well, there you go. It was meant to be. Lou's looking out for us.
Oh, Lord, I told you that story. I'll probably share it later. The one friend of ours that I've also talked about on the show from time to time, Father Joe, told me the story that when he was in a car accident once, he had a near-death experience. And the being that showed up to tell him that he had to go back, it wasn't his time yet, it wasn't an angel, it wasn't God, it was Lou, dressed all in white.
I know that guy's still around. Trust me.
Oh, no doubt. I need to find the recorder and then find it on the recorder, but I do have the EVP from Lou.
Yeah, man, he always that guy could get an EVP, and they were clear too. It wasn't these ones you see on TV. You know, they were clear. Most of the time, you got good identification on those things. You really did.
Yeah. So do you want to share one of your favorite stories with the man?
Actually, you know what? My favorite one, if you remember, well, did you tell him that we used to torture Kevin all the time? He would be working. We would show up trying to get him. You know when he couldn't leave, just torturing him at work.
Oh, yeah.
let's see, we were up in New Hope at that time.
Yep.
And, maybe we just show off the torch on
In the middle of the night, middle of my shift.
Yeah.
You were there for the trip to Union, weren't you?
Yeah, that's the one I was going to talk about because I tell everybody, I was like, you get on those investigations and you're all business when you're doing that shit, but like the time you step outside the house and the time going home is when you have your fun. I said, that was probably one of the most fun trips because it was you, me, Eric. Yeah, Eric was with us. It was you, me, Lou. I was like, we did nothing but just talk about each other for about 2.5 hours. Literally talking about each other, just cracking on each other the whole way. But went up to Union Cemetery. That was and I looked at cemetery too. It's nice and old.
Oh yeah.
As a matter of fact, the cops came to kick us out, and Lou started talking to him and got us back in.
Not only it was better than that. Remember, because originally we were sitting outside of the cemetery talking about going in, because it was technically a whole no trespassing inside of the cemetery, so we were skirting the line by sitting outside of it. So not only did Lou get them to not kick us out, he got them to let us say, okay, it's okay to go inside.
Yeah. He was good like that. That was the thing most people didn't know, man. Lou was the nicest guy.
He really was.
He would cold bull on you in no uncertain terms and lay it out to you and just let you know, But he was just a great guy. It really, and it was fun to go do it with him. So go out on those investigations and learn it. It was good. Every time he said something to you, you had to listen to him because he was teaching you something. You might not have thought it, but he was teaching you something. And listen, let's be honest about it. Where else do you get to go get KFC or Taco Bell and sit in the middle of a cemetery at 3 o'clock in the morning and eat it?
Yeah. And that was the thing. He never gave any advance notice. You remember that? It's like, you want to go do a case right now.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. And as I said, thank God for Antoinette, his wife, because it got to the point. I had the kids. I was a single dad. If it weren't for that poor lady and what she had to put up with him, oh, dear God. But she would watch my kids so I could go out with them.
That sounds like Ann.
Oh, yeah. I remember we went out to Walmart, and he bought her, it was her birthday.
Mm-hmm.
He bought this, $400 digital camera for her, and I put it in quotations, her birthday. She gets in the car, and he hands it to her, and she's like, what am I going to do with this? He knew it was for him.
He bought himself a camera for her birthday.
Yeah, for her birthday. So that poor woman, she got tortured by him. But the whole he was definitely a character. I said just so much fun. Well, I remember you used to have the little minivan. He used to call it the mystery van. we were up in Byberry doing an investigation. And if you remember where he went, remember we go almost not to the state park, but we go in the back on the other side. And we're flying the one time. I'm not lying to you. We're doing about 55, 60 miles an hour. Lights off because you can't see anything. And, Luke being goofy.
And we're not supposed to be there because it's Byberry.
Oh, yeah, right. And you hear thud. And he was like, did you just see someone I can't tell. It looked like it. We turned on the headlight. There must have been a herd of deer flying over the cars. We're flying through there. I'm like, oh, my God.
So to give some context to that for our listeners, we're talking about Byberry, which is I should say, because they tore it down, a state mental hospital in Philadelphia that closed in the 80s or 90s. It was incredibly active, but it's one of those, no, you're not supposed to go there for any reason, and we went there Lou went there all the bloody time.
Yeah, man, you did, and you're right, man. That thing had so much activity that it was scary.
Oh yeah. Well, no, I only went there twice. The first time was the very first time he went there. And then the second time, we didn't actually go in. Oh, no, 3 times. One time we went up to it, but we didn't go in for some reason, which was with a friend of mine. And then the other time, we got stopped by Neighborhood Watch, basically.
Yeah, we learned to go over by the Wawa side or the other side where the overpass went over, so we'd have to, ninjas running through the one thing at the brook on the side of it. So plenty of times we went in there soaked. But he did one of his radio broadcasts from the undisclosed location one time.
That's so Lou.
Yeah. So W7, that building, man, that was wild. That was wild.
And that's the thing. I want people to try to learn about him. And if you go, guys, again, sadly, it's tragic. There is very few of the shows that you can find online anymore, but there are a few. And there's some interviews that he did in various places, and of course the last special that he did before he passed away, which was Darren Brown Investigates the Ghost Hunter.
Yeah, yeah. It's
it is so hard to
people don't
watch
realize
that.
That they mostly, and I said I'm not going to drop names and stuff like that, but all these shows you see, not the new ones you see,
Yeah.
you know, the new ones, the guys who like to do clones and stuff like that. Those shows all took from him. He used to have his seminar. You remember? His seminar was like 2.5 hours.
Oh yeah.
And it was incredible. And everybody they leached off of him and took his ideas. You know, they offered him shows a few times, and if they wouldn't give him creative authority, he wouldn't take it because he said, "I'm not going to do anything that's a lie." You know, people need to know that we go out on 100 investigations, and you get 2 or 3 active ones, you're all over it. But most of our time sitting around in the cemetery trying to get EVPs.
Yeah, nothing happens.
You know, he didn't lie about it.
Yeah. And you look, I mean, he knew a bunch of those people. I mean, he had been to Penn State and met Ryan Buell back before he started that whole Paranormal State debacle.
Yep.
Heck, and I will, don't want to do it, but I'll come out and do it. Yeah, folks, if you watch the old Paranormal State, I think they've either stopped it or changed names or I don't know what. You'll hear that intro about how when Buell was a kid, he had these experiences, and then when he grew up, he found and how it'd keep coming back. Yeah, that's not Ryan Buell. He just took Lou's intro to the radio show from back in the day and copied it. I mean, it was what?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, there isn't even anything subtle about that. If anyone who knew the show back in the day can tell, I know Lou. I talked to Stacy, one of Lou's daughters, and I remember her telling me he had some notions about how to handle it, just by virtue of it's blatant plagiarism.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Also, I believe I met Buell because I was with Lou for the first time he went to the paranormal conference at Penn State. And it's like, he came out across on that show, and that's the thing. And very much, I think Ed, you'll agree with me, the big move nowadays that everybody in the paranormal community is a demonologist.
Oh, dear God, yeah.
That's I mean, Ed had a big influence on that, obviously, but Lou was a huge part of that, too.
Absolutely. What most people don't realize is those rights are written for individuals, Yeah. They're written for individuals. And like I said, Lou was happy that he was going to hand stuff off to you all the time. He told me, Kevin, I love him. This guy's good. He reads his books. He's up to date on stuff. Don't ever try and debate Kevin. He's going to lose, and I lose the laugh. So I met Kevin. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to. I'm not going to. But even at the Penn State things, the one year I was there, he had put a flyer out, and Lou actually got upset because he was like a kick-ass demonologist, and Lou was like, "Why would you put that? Like, it doesn't even you don't put that stuff there." But guys from Ghost Hunters, they were trying to get him on the show to do EVPs and so. I mean, people were constantly coming up to him, even when we would go to the shows. People don't realize he actually had an agent. He could have had a show. Matter of fact, one of the people we talked about, that could have been his show. He turned it down.
Yeah.
He just was going to do things the right way. He wasn't going to trick things. He wasn't going to make things up. You were going to see what an investigation was like.
Well, I always knew Lou's thing was he didn't want a regular show because he knew, and it's ultimately been true, that if you're going to have a weekly show for years and years and years, eventually you're going to have to make some stuff up or react in that shadows. And I don't mean to, there are some legitimate groups that have had shows. I mean, John Zaffis absolutely knows what he's doing, and he had his own TV show. But it didn't last very long.
Right. And again, that's part of the Ed Warren, Lou thing.
Yeah.
Lou was very close friends with John Zaffis.
Yeah.
Very close.
But it's like, the ones that go on and on and on and on and on, eventually you've got to do something for ratings. Yeah. It's that simple. And the reality is sometimes Because Ed can confirm this, but even when you go with somebody who knows what they're doing, like Lou, even in an active house, it'll be nice you're just sitting there waiting for something to happen that never happens.
You're right. You're right, man. You go in on Friday night, and all hell breaks loose. And you go on Saturday. It's a nice, normal place. You're like, wait a minute, it's the same place.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's,
Sometimes the ghost takes a night off.
Exactly.
yeah, everybody needs a break. No, but it was fun. We got to cast the characters too. Like I said, we have a good day. The most fun you have is before and after those investigations, and you go out and laugh because let's be honest. You get into some houses and some people just aren't right. Okay.
Oh, good Lord, yes.
They're just not right. You got to keep the straight face, and you're like, oh boy, this is a bad one. And it's not because it's haunted.
It's because the lights are on, but nobody's home.
Right.
And some of the people that nobody was home on, it's like, just because somebody is crazy doesn't mean they don't have a ghost.
No, you're right. Listen, you're right. Listen, he said so many things to me that, you remember. Like I said, this is years ago. I still remember. The first thing he ever said to me was, if we ever go somewhere, don't you ever run from me. And I'm thinking, oh, yeah, no, Lou, I'll never embarrass you that way. He's like, no. He said, if you run from me, how am I going to help you if you get away from me?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Didn't think that one through too clear. All right, yeah. I think I'm going to stick by you.
Hold on. Okay,
I think I lost you there, Kevin.
No, Stacy is messaging me saying that Antoinette called and there was no answer.
Good. I'm going to call in at the same time.
Yeah, call back. Hold on, I'm writing it out to her.
Okay.
Want to go grab somebody outside?
No, that she's trying to call in.
I'm so confused.
Okay, Stacy or Antoinette, if you're listening to me at the moment, 609-807-2492, 609-807-2492. It should work. I mean, if you call into this number, you should be able to get through. Yeah. Then again, and this is another thing, and this happened back in the day with the show, and I don't think it's the first time it's happened here either. Things will screw with the technology.
Yeah, they will. Yeah, they will.
I mean, how many times were you out on a case and you had the batteries on one of Lou's gizmos drain?
Oh, boy, how many times you go into the case and you get a flat, and you get the flat fixed, and then 10 minutes later you get another flat?
I'll tell you the one.
We got another caller.
Yep. Oh, hello, you're on the air.
One caller and then the other one just called.
Hello, you there?
Hey, Kev, it's Antoinette. How are you?
Antoinette, it's so
Hey.
good to hear from you. Ladies and gentlemen,
Yes, I know. I was calling you from a different number. I guess I couldn't get through, so Stacey just gave me this one.
yeah, this is the right number. I think the other one might have been my cell phone, just in case you needed to reach me.
Oh, okay.
But ladies and gentlemen, this is Antoinette Gentile, Lou's wife. How have you been? It's been a long time since we've spoken.
Yeah, pretty good. Doing okay.
And Ed, you should still be there as well, yes?
Oh, yeah, I'm just lurking in the background.
Who is that? Ed Harty?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, how are you?
It's a reunion.
I'm glad I talk good about Anthony, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I posted on Stacy's Facebook page, and Ed's like, "Oh, look, you dragged Kevin out from nowhere." And I'm like, "From nowhere? I've been doing the show for 4 years." But no, I'm so glad to have
Okay,
you
so
both.
what are we doing? What are we talking about now?
We've mostly been swapping stories about Lou and the technical gizmos, and the tendency of the batteries on his stuff to drain out on cases.
Oh, my God, yes. Mm-hmm.
But I was going to say,
Constantly.
I know from experience, you guys had some stuff happen in the house, did you not?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You want to tell one of your more interesting stories of how things got weird?
Okay. Well, like he would do that recording. He would put the recorder down, and everything was quiet, and he would ask questions, and then he would play back, and we would get a voice that did not sound human, and it would tell Lou to go fuck off. and and tell him that he wants him to die.
Yep. And
then there was we would see black shadows around the house, growling at our feet when we had no pets. And then I would see a face, not a good face, with sharp, jagged teeth, I guess a demon face, I would think. And every time when I turned around, I would see it. I would see it in my entertainment center, the glass in my entertainment center.
I can picture it in my head.
Glass. And one morning I got up, I'm ready to walk down the steps, and I swore something like kicked me or pushed me at the back of my ankles, and I flew down the steps. Another night, Lou fell asleep downstairs. I threw a blanket over him. There was no getting him up. He was snoring away. And I was like, okay, I'm going upstairs. I went to bed, and I was laying in bed for 5 minutes, and I felt like something was in the room with me. And so, like Lou said, ignore it. So that's what I was trying to do. And all of a sudden, I felt something like electricity from the tip of my toes, and all of a sudden, as I'm ready to get up, it just swarmed up my legs, and all of a sudden, it pushed me back down, and it was holding me there, and I'm screaming off the top of my lungs, but nothing's coming out. And then I would get one shoulder loose, and it pushed me back down, and I kept fighting until I finally broke loose, and I ran out of the bedroom, and I slept downstairs, and I never slept in that bedroom alone again.
I don't blame you.
And, just a whole lot of weird things. The girls would see, like, shadows staring at them. Their baby doll that was in their bedroom, the coach with the baby doll in it, actually flew out of the bedroom and down my steps. So I don't know how that happened.
Oh, Lord, I remember the one night, because you and the girls were down the shore, and I came over to hang out with Lou. So we're sitting in your living room and doing EVPs. So I remember we're looking up at the top of the stairs, and we're seeing a light show go back and forth down that hallway. And him going, "Why don't you go up there?" I'm like, and spirits don't bother me, but I'm deathly afraid of heights. Like, dude, I don't want to go up there. You up there? Yeah, we've all got our phobias.
I guess he was afraid to tell me because I was freaked out.
Yeah. I mean,
people forget that the family, like Antoinette, what she went through. I mean, us guys coming in and out of her. I mean, she had different people coming in the house all
you
the
put
time.
up with so much from the rest of us.
To go do investigations, and she stuck there. Like I said, she was babysitting my kids, and she got close to my daughter Erin, who's I love her to death. Like, if you listen to Erin, you're still a psycho. And just a different person. I mean, she held everything together. You know what I mean? People don't realize that she was like the rock behind it, because if it weren't for her, I wouldn't even be able to go on most of the investigations I went with. But, just like I said, the weirdos going in and out of the house, and I mean myself included in that shit, the people in and out, people constantly calling them, and him getting up in the middle of the night just running out to help people out.
Oh, yeah.
They don't realize there's a family at home.
Not to mention, I virtually lived in your house for a couple of summers. I was there so often, and you put up with so much.
Yeah, I have a lot of patience.
Yes, you do.
And I don't know, Ed, do you remember when we all went to Byberry, and we were in that little room, and we all sat down, and he's doing the EVP, and remember I said, I hear somebody coming, it's a man and a woman, and I can hear the footsteps come up the steps, and they're circling us, and nobody was there, and they're talking. And all I can remember doing is just saying 100 Hail Marys, 100 Our Fathers, and I opened my eyes once, and I'm looking at where the voices were, and I can hear the footsteps, and I'm like, okay, let me close my eyes again, because I don't see nothing. And when we got home, I swear to God, I felt like we slept for 2 days.
Yeah, there was that W7 building. That was that one where all that activity. I remember that too. I remember that. I do remember that.
Mm-hmm.
That place was such a
You said
treat.
you heard something also.
I remember I was there.
Did you say you heard something also?
I seen the we were in pitch dark, but I actually seen a black shadow about 5 foot walk in front of me, and I'm just sitting there looking, and I'm just like, how, it's dark, I can't see anything. How do I see this figure? A lot of stuff happened that night when we were there. A lot.
People talk about those shadow people, and Ed can tell you, Antoinette, I bet you can say it too, and I'll say it. It's like, you see them, you'll never forget it because they're darker than dark.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. In fact, I have one here in my new house. It was Stephanie's birthday. We're saying happy birthday to her, and my friend Christine was down with her son, and they're at the island, sitting there at the island, and my girlfriend took a picture, and the following week she was, Antoinette, I gotta send you this picture. Look what's behind them. And she sent, I still have the picture, and I'm looking at it, and it was a black shadow. Like you couldn't even see through it. It was like, it was, what do you call it, solid. And it was a weird shape of a man or whatever the hell it was. And I still have that picture.
I'd be curious to see it. I don't doubt you for a second. I have loose curiosity. It's like, okay, I want to see this.
Well, I'm sure, sorry to say for poor Antoinette, there's residual following Antoinette.
Yeah.
She has some guests that probably latched on or still there with her.
I'm just figuring it as well. If you have any of Lou's old stuff, I'm sure there's plenty attached to it.
Oh, yeah. We have it in the garage, and we were getting ready to leave for Florida, and it was like around 3:30 in the morning, and we're sitting there nice and quiet, just waiting to head to the airport. And all of a sudden, from my garage door that leads into my kitchen, you hear bang, 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 like full force. You can see the door shaking as it was banging. And we all stood up. We all got a big-ass knife. And I said, on the count of 3, open that door. And so they, count of 3, open the door. Nobody was there. I reach in, I turn on the garage light, looked around, searched. Nothing's in there. I'm like, what the hell? I said, okay, girls, have a good week. We're in Florida.
You actually called me when because you were going to ask me to come up when that happened. I remember you calling me about that. So there's nothing more disturbing than hearing what you hear. Like you hear something breaking, something moving, something dropping, and you go in and nothing's disturbed. You're like,
I'll point out, I only live in Mattawan. If something happens, you want somebody to come by, just ask.
And and we'll be sitting in my living room here, and in my bedroom, and then I have a pretty big walk-in closet and a pretty big bathroom, and the bedroom's pretty big, but I can hear, we're just sitting in the room, and above us is my bedroom, and we can hear somebody walking back and forth. And then one night, I wasn't here. I don't know where I was, but Stephanie and her friend shot in the house, and they're like, they hear a guy upstairs going, hello, hello, and they're going, what's that? They're like, hello, they're answering back, and they go, and they can hear the footsteps coming down my steps. they're like, who is it? And the guy says, hello. And they walk over and nobody's there. Nobody's home. They thought Samantha was home or somebody was home. Nobody's in the house. They ran out of the house. And I forget the rest of the story. But I wasn't home. I don't know. I was out, with my cheer moms having fun. I don't know.
Well, I do want to tell you the one more pleasant story.
Magic happens. I'm just saying.
Yeah. So, Antoinette, you'd probably enjoy this, and I really need to isolate the EVP so I can play it on the show one of these nights. So, I got one of the recorders that Lou used to use. Father Joe had it. He wound up selling it to me. And the convention we met up at this one convention I was speaking at. I got it from him, and then it's done with the speaking, over with the convention for the night, and I'm sitting up in my hotel room with friends of mine, and I do what Lou always used to do, and we start doing EVPs. So we're doing these EVPs, and I'm sitting there, and as you probably remember, I am not the most psychic of people. But I start getting a sense of somebody in the room. But specifically, I start getting a sense of somebody familiar in the room. So I say, if this is who I think it is, I'm going to ask a question on the recorder that you always used to ask, and I want you to give the answer they always gave you. So I asked, of course, Lou's signature question, are you a human spirit? Have you ever lived? Now, we all know the answer he always got. So when I play it back, you can hear a distinctly male voice chuckling. And then you hear, yes, asshole.
Oh, really?
I'm entirely certain I got Lou on EVP.
That's kind of been Lou.
That would be him.
Yeah.
That's a would.
It's like, yeah, that's him in a nutshell.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, he is.
That is too funny.
So like I said, people don't realize, the fun you had before, during, and after investigations, we took our breaks, we got together and talked. That's the times you remember. Just laughing, just having a good time. And then you went back to all business.
Oh, yeah. Very serious, as is proper on a case, but always afterwards, I'd remember we'd hit up a diner somewhere.
Yeah, oh my God.
It'd be 2, 3 in the morning in some diner in the middle of Bumble nowhere.
There was a Denny's he didn't know about. He knew where every Denny's was.
Oh my God! Who was that? I don't know if it was one of you or someone else. I forget. But he went to a diner, an all-you-can-eat buffet, and they kicked him out. Shrimp.
Lou was not I wasn't there for that one, but that sounds like Lou.
Do you remember, Antoinette, we would go down to the Meadowlands for some of those shows when George Romero and all those guys were there? And you weren't there the one time, but we went out, and I got really drunk. It was very nice to Kevin Sorbo, but the other kid guy he had on the show, I don't know who it was, the sidekick, got really upset because he was good-looking and cocky, and I threatened to kick his ass. And Lou was like, okay, you had enough, I had to leave. So, but I'm just like, we didn't get a room. We were supposed to get a room. We got there, it was booked. So we slept in the car, and I remember I got up at 6 in the morning, went to the hotel buffet, went in. I ate the biggest breakfast I could have. It's an open buffet style, just pay, drank it. And I remember I came back to the car, and he was like, why do you smell like bacon? I said, oh, I went and ate. He was like, I thought you didn't have any money on you. I was like, I didn't. What do you mean you didn't? I'm like, yeah, I ate. I just left. You son of a bitch. Sorry. It was too Eric and he were sitting in the car starving. I'm like, sorry.
I'm curious which of the various sidekicks Lou had for the show.
Oh,
Back.
man.
Oh my God, it's too funny.
I mean, I just remember the series of producers we went through.
We were at the Meadowlands, and we were at a convention, and so we sat down to have dinner and some cocktails afterwards. And at our table, of course, it was Lou and I. I don't know, I forget who else. It was George Romero, David DeVos from Wishmaster.
Nice.
A couple more people. I forget.
He knew all of them.
But so anyway, Lou's like, "Hey, you want a drink?" I'm like, "I don't know. What's good? I don't want a beer or none." He goes, "Oh, try a Long Island iced tea." I said, "Okay, I'll try that."
Oh my God, I remember.
Well, it was so good. I'm like, "Yeah, can I have another one?" And so, well, I ended up drinking 4. Well, now I'm sloshed. And now Lou's talking to David Deroff and all that. And he's talking about movies. And he said, "Yeah, I love Wishmaster." And I was like, "Yeah, me." And I'm slurring my words. And I'm going, "Yeah, I can play that part. I can say, I can give you 3 wishes." And so anyway, David, he's cracking up laughing. He's actually hard, laughing hard. So anyway, Lou's going on about movies. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just have to tell everybody." I said, "Lou's favorite movie is Free Willy." And at the end of Free Willy, he cried and died out. And then Lou kicked me on the table. I said, "Lou, stop kicking me. Why are you kicking me?"
He's around all these horror legends, and you're talking about Free
Long
Willy.
Island iced tea again.
Well,
And
was
then
that the night he had me walk you up to the room? Because it had to be that night because I know you were, and you were funny
Oh, I don't
too.
even
Yeah,
remember.
you weren't holding back. Oh yeah, that might have been that night. Yeah, you weren't holding back. Me and Eric were dying. I'm like, oh boy.
Oh my God.
He gave us all so much shit, though. He deserved it.
Well, they loved Lou there. It didn't matter. Lou, they came up to Lou. It wasn't the other way around. I remember we were walking there.
Oh, yeah.
They'd come flying to Lou as soon as he walked in the show.
No, I remember a friend of mine, because he, having always heard me talk about Lou and Ed and Lorraine, and he'd always he went and looked them all up, and it's like, I don't think it's fair, but you look up Ed and Lorraine Warren online, there's so much shit about them, and people hate them. Even, Ed died in 2006, he still gets shit. But you look up Lou online, people still have a very good opinion of him.
Oh, okay.
Because he's a straight
I
shooter.
remember
Yeah.
going to, yeah. I remember going to Ed and Lorraine Warren's house, and they took me down into that room. Ed did.
Oh, boy.
Lou and I. And I seen the doll and all the other stuff. And interesting.
I'll tell people this, and I always remembered for a while, I mean, eventually he got out of it, but Lou's dream, when I first met him, for a couple of years even, was he wanted to spend a night down in that museum. Until
Oh, okay.
Ed finally talked
he
him
did.
out of it. But he was because I remember him
I wanted
telling
to
me,
make sure I get a. Back then, he never said nothing to me. I'm like, well, if I would have, if he ever did that, Lou, give him like insurance policy or something.
well, Ed told him if he ever did that, the person who came out wouldn't be him anymore.
Oh Christ! Don't say that.
That's why. Well, that's why Ed wouldn't let him do it.
Oh, okay.
It's like I remember Lou telling me that. I remember him also telling me that when he was learning from them, the investigators, when they'd hang out at Lorraine's house, it'd be a contest to who could go down there after dark and stay down there alone the longest.
Lou could do it.
Yeah, he did. He did. I don't know where his record stood, but I know he was down there by himself more than once.
Oh my God. Yeah.
He was nuts. He'd go anywhere.
Yeah.
There was no running from him. Like, he went at it. Like, he seen something like, he'd take off flying.
Yeah.
As big as he was, that man would move.
Well, I remember, oh, good heavens, there's the one house that we did in Westchester, Pennsylvania, I want to say. And it was a weird case because you had a house from the 1700s and a forge from the 1700s right across the street from each other. When you exorcised one, it would run over to the other. And it just kept moving back and forth between the two until finally he had an exorcism performed on both at the same time.
Oh, okay.
But,
Hmm.
and I remember for that matter, and it was the one time I went out there with him is when he did a self-immutation ritual on the house to finish it off. And he did that, and I sat in the forge at the time. But this house, I remember him telling me once he was up in the attic, and he saw something that looked like a cross between a cow and a frog, with a mouthful of like razor sharp teeth. And it went down the hall into another room. And Lou being Lou, what did he do? He chased it. But him also telling me him been up there, because he followed it to this window, and he's standing at a window, and it basically materialized behind him. He said the only thing that kept him from getting thrown out that window was the cross he was wearing.
Okay, which he lost.
Did he?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Because I remember he had the rosary as well from Padre Pio.
Oh, okay.
That real big wooden one that he had.
Big wooden one. If anything has to be put away, or I don't know. I don't know about that.
Worth looking into, because I mean that was a holy relic from, and of course it wasn't at the time, but he has been since Saint Pio, Padre Pio, who was canonized a couple of years ago.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That he had gotten from Ed and Lorraine. I am really.
Okay. Yeah, I remember them. I do.
I am really sorry to say this, but we're coming up at the end of the show, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
Because we're only on until 7:30.
Do you remember seeing at Byberry when it's on recording? It's all on recording.
Mm-hmm.
That terrible growling scream.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody.
You remember
Was anyone there?
that's when you had, I was there it happened 2 times. It happened with 2 other investigators where it was really just came out of nowhere. But if you remember, I know you got to get off the air here, but you remember I went with Lou. He brought a reporter, and she had this guy who was about 6'4", 6'5". He was there with her, supposed to be protecting her.
Yeah.
We're getting up to W7. Guy's walking around like, I'm a big bad guy. And Lou's like, hey, listen, do me a favor, be careful, walk behind me. And I was like, I'm not afraid of nothing. He's like, I'm not afraid of nothing either. I just don't want you falling through the floor. Like, people always thought there was something else into it. So we get into the little room. I think we were on the 4th or 5th floor, and it's sort of like it's round, where the nurses could see on like the 5 different hallways.
Yeah.
And people don't realize it's not like on TV. You don't have cameras. We go on our own way. We're in the dark by ourselves. Eric went somewhere. I went somewhere. Lou went somewhere. They went. Well, we heard this screaming and yelling, and we had our meet-up point. We all run back, and she has it on tape. And she's no, I have the screaming on there. So she's playing it back. And you hear the screaming, and then all of a sudden after, you hear this just low, just vicious growl that you just know is not human. Like, it makes the hair on you just like, oh, wow. It's just turning about 3 o'clock, and we're going out. Lou's like, all right, it's time to get out of here now. We need to get out before things start getting a little bit crazy.
And I've heard the growling in that place before.
So we're walking down the hallway.
I know you're talking about it. Getting goosebumps.
Yeah. But this big 6'4", 6'5" guy grabs me by the shoulder. You can see behind me and him are the last one. He says, Eddie, and he calls me Eddie, not Ed. Eddie, do you mind if I walk in front of you? I'm like, get in front of me, but if someone wants to grab you, it's going to grab you.
Yeah.
This poor guy, they couldn't get out fast enough. That was the best thing I ever saw.
The toughest guys freak out the fastest in my experience.
Yeah.
That's like the time in my house. When it was nothing on, I was cooking dinner. I go to the refrigerator, and the refrigerator is right next to the basement door. And all of a sudden, there's growling at my feet. I looked at Lou, who's sitting on the couch, and I said, really? Who brought a dog home? And it's just growling at my feet. I'm like, geez, I get ignored. Just go do what you got to do. And I'm like, this is just great.
I hate to do this, but I do have to cut you short because our time is up. I talked to...
Okay, well, it was fun.
It really was. Thank you both for calling in. I talked to Stacy. She's going to try and call in next week. I want to say also, personally, both of you are always welcome to call in the shows every week, 6:30 to 7:30. You're always welcome here. I'd also just love to do, if you guys are ever free and are up to it, let's get together and do dinner or something.
Yeah,
that's fine. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just let me know.
Something, get it together, whatever. And,
But
And we'll come up with a date that we're all free.
yep.
I'm sitting next to Antoinette because she's handy.
Yes, she is. Okay, but all right, we're gonna let you go. Have a good
Bye.
night, you both of you, and God bless. It's good to hear from you again.
All right. See you.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Good night.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Okay, folks, that was Antoinette Eisenhower Gentile and Ed Harty Senior, two friends of mine from back in the days when I worked with Lou. So you got to hear some stories and some reminiscing about the good old days and how I got started in this crazy mess. It looks like we may be getting into it a little next week, as Lou's daughter's going to call in. But we need to do our last sponsor and then sign out.
All right. Everyone is concerned about internet security these days, from governments to major corporations. NordVPN is the answer you've been looking for. A VPN is a virtual private network that protects your IP address so that your online activity is protected by a military-grade encryption. The way it works is you connect to Nord's protected network and they connect to the internet. It's a layer of protection between you and all the viruses, malware, and snoopers out there. Nord works on all devices too, not just computers. Your phone, your tablet, whatever, up to 6 devices at a time, regardless of what operating system they use. Nord works with them all. Access all the internet content you want, streaming media, websites, and social platforms. Nothing is restricted on Nord, so it's a great way to get around those pesky firewalls at work or maybe in a country that's not so internet friendly. They have easy plans starting at a month for only $11.95 or up to a 3-year plan for as low as $275 a month. Check it out risk-free at our
Affiliate link
our
in the description.
affiliate link in the description. You'll be glad you did.
So that's going to do it for tonight. I want to thank our listeners for listening as always, and Antoinette and Ed for calling in. It was a lot of fun. Folks, remember, if you want to support the show, you can use the links in the description. Also, like, comment, and subscribe are the freest things you can do that are always a huge help to us. We're currently at 445 subscribers. We love each and every single one of you. If we get to 500, we're going to do something special. We'll do something cool at 1,000 again, because once we hit 1,000, we get eligible to do monetization back through YouTube.
Yeah.
If you got a little bit of extra money you want to throw our way, you can also go to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/demonology, or our GoFundMe, gofundme.com/paranormal encyclopedia. Unfortunately, we've gotten past the point where we're going to be able to move to the 2-hour mark, but that will be an option again in the future, so we want to save up money to try to do that. But that's going to do it for tonight. This is Kevin Mears saying good night and God bless.
Ryan McKinley saying keep your fangs sharp.
And the missing small, medium, at large, I'm sure, would say avoid lightning rods.
Avoid lightning rods.
So good night and God bless, everybody.